Hello there. This is Joyce Cairns here from Neuron Learning, and this week I thought I would talk about an article that I'd read in the Financial Times at the weekend by Laura Hughes. And the article was about are children ready for school? And a growing number of children are not ready for school at the age of 4.5 or 5. Just over 68% of children are currently deemed ready in the UK, which means that almost a third of children are not ready. And when we talk to, well, in the article, Laura outlines that these children are not able to count, they're not able to sit still or share with others, and their finger strength is a problem. And the finger strength is a big problem, and we're seeing that more and more in schools as children are progressing through school. And when we talk to teachers here, they agree that it's the same here in Ireland and in other parts of Europe. Some children are simply not ready for school. And the areas of concern are language, counting, eye-hand coordination, finger strength, sitting still, taking off their coat or putting their coat back on or hanging up their coats, sharing, etc. And a lot of this is down to, or it's accredited to, the lack of facilities for parents for children preschool ages. But there are lots of things that we can do to help our children before starting school. There are lots of things that parents can do to help children before starting school. Now, I used to run Montessori schools, and we used to spend a year, sometimes 2 years, preparing children for school. But there are some very simple things that we can do to help children develop important skills such as finger strength and eye-hand coordination. And one of, something that we've been using for years and years and years and years is coloring books and coloring pencils. And this might seem like, oh, a very ordinary skill, but it's a very, very important skill because the child learns to hold the pencil, control the pencil, try to keep the colours within the lines. The child is working with different colours, and and there are so many skills involved in just colouring and holding the pencil or chalk if a child is using chalk or crayons or whatever. Now, I often tell the story of we were out for dinner recently, and we were next to a family, and there were two young children, and one of them wanted to do some colouring. So his dad took out an iPad and gave the iPad to the child, and the child started colouring using his forefinger. And the program corrected the colouring if he went outside the line. And I thought that is so defeating the purpose of colouring with preschool kids, because there was no need for him to control. He could pick any colour, and he didn't have to hold the pencil, control the actual movement and the actual colouring itself. And so that benefited that. It kept him quiet. Good thing during dinner, I suppose, but it didn't develop his eye-hand coordination so much. It definitely didn't develop his pencil grip or his pincer movement, which is very, very important for writing later on. Threading is something that parents can do at home that's really simple, like taking shoelaces out of shoes and lacing them up again, putting the laces through the holes in the shoe to thread them up again, or threading itself. There's simple threading exercises you can do. Sewing with a big needle, pegging. Get kids to help to hang out the washing, or to peg washing onto clothes horses or whatever. It's just to develop that pincer movement is very important. Helping them, getting them to tie shoelaces. I know now they might be very young at 3 or 4 to tie a shoelace, but to try and tie the shoelaces, or bows or ribbons, and to tie buttons, get that hand dexterity, that finger dexterity, and that control and movement. Tying buckles. I don't know, we hardly ever see buckles now, but they are great for that manipulating the buckle itself and controlling the movement and building up that hand dexterity, that eye-hand coordination. Absolutely fantastic. And tonguing, getting tongs like you'd use in a barbecue, or tongs when you'd use for tonguing vegetables in a pan, or sausages in a pan, or whatever. And right down, start with the big tongs and work right down to a little tongs, like a tweezers, and get kids to tweeze maybe matchsticks really thin, so they have to control that movement, but start big and work down small. And these are things that kids can do in the home, that they don't cost a lot of money. They're simple exercises, but they're very, very important exercises, because we are getting more and more phone calls from parents whose kids are struggling to write. And when I ask what is their pencil grip like, very often, I would say 8 out of 10 times, parents are now saying that their children, and these would be older kids in towards the end of primary school, or sometimes in secondary school as well. Once they've developed the skill, it can be difficult to change it. So we see that the children have a poor pencil grip, which puts pressure on their fingers, the muscles in their fingers, the muscles in their arms, chest and back. And so they find it really tiring to write for long periods of time. So that's the physical side of writing has become a bigger problem than it used to be before. When I started working with the program that we now work on, called Fast ForWord, I would say maybe 1 in 10 children couldn't hold the pencil properly. Now I would say 8 out of 10 children whose parents ring us, these would be kids who are struggling with writing. And it's not just the cognitive side of writing they're struggling with the physical side of writing, because they haven't mastered that pencil grip and that pincer movement and that control. And they find it very difficult to write quickly. And so that also is a problem for finishing exams on time when kids are older. So that writing, developing those skills very early on, and developing that pincer movement is very, very important. One of the other major issues that children have coming in, starting school, teachers are telling us, is that they don't have good language skills. Their skills are not as good as they used to be, let's say 10 years ago. And we can blame computers for that. I don't know, but definitely language skills are not as good as they used to be years ago. So and it's very easy to develop language skills. We just keep talking to kids, talk all the time to kids, develop conversations, introduce them to nursery rhymes, learn the nursery rhymes by heart. Nursery rhymes, I went to buy a nursery rhyme book for my niece recently, but found it difficult to find a good selection of nursery rhymes. They're very limited. But nursery rhymes, fewer and fewer kids know their nursery rhymes or are learning their nursery rhymes. And a nursery rhyme, they develop memory skills, because they have to remember the nursery rhymes. They develop processing skills because they have to process the rhyming words and the differences between the words. They develop sequencing skills because they're learning the lines. They're learning the sequence of the lines, the sequence of the verses, and so on. So the nursery rhymes are very important for all of the cognitive skills are being strengthened. And nursery rhymes are easy to learn, and children love learning them and singing along. Um, Teaching them songs, simple songs like, and you can Google all of these songs and get the lyrics online. There's one song, for example, you can learn the days of the week, the months of the year. There's one song, for example, that I used to teach kids about the continents. Show me the continents, Um, and so the songs, it's a great way to learn, but also to develop vocabulary, to develop pronunciation, and to develop those memory and cognitive skills. Storybooks are fantastic. Introducing children to storybooks. Um, Very, very important to build up vocabulary and thinking skills so they can think about the story, they can think about what's happening and who's doing what and who's feeling what feeling and all the rest of it. Building up those thinking skills are very important. And chatting. And um, I was out walking with my daughter before Christmas, and it had been raining in the morning, but it was clearing up, and it was really lovely, and the sky was clearing, and it was cold. It was very cold, but it was a lovely morning, and so we were walking down by in the park near us, and the park has just been redeveloped, and so there are beautiful slides and swings and playgrounds for the kids. There are facilities there for all ages. But we came upon a father and his little son, and I'd say the son was about 3 years old, and he was sliding down the slides. Now they've a huge selection of slides, and you have to climb up the hill to get to the top of the slide again, and so there are ropes to pull yourself up and all the rest of it. So this little boy anyway was sliding down the slide, and his father was at the end of the slide, and um, and his head was buried in his phone, and the little boy had, he was all excited, and he kept shouting at the dad, "Dad, look at me, look at me!" And the father looked up, and he said, "Oh, you're great, well done, fantastic." And then he buried his head in phone again, and the son got to the end of the slide. He dragged himself up the hill again and got to the top of the slide and slid down again and again, shouted to his father, "Look at me, look at me." And again, the father looked up and told him he was fantastic, and again buried his head in the phone. And I commented to my daughter, that's such a pity, because he has this great opportunity here to chat with his child about the slides, about all the slides were different lengths, different sizes, widths. They're surrounded by trees. There were so many things that they could have been talking about, but the father chose to look at his phone. And so we continued walking, and we came down by the river, and down by the river there is there are docks, and so there was a ship with container ship, and there were cranes lifting the containers from the ship. And here we came upon a second father and son. And the son was in the buggy. He was about the same age as the first child that we saw. And the father was bent over the buggy, and he was talking about the cranes lifting the containers. And he was asking his son about what he thought might be in the containers. And they were looking at the different colors. There were navy blue containers, and there were red containers. So they were talking about the colors. There was a heron on the riverbank, and so he pointed to the heron, and the heron, he talked about how tall he was and his beak, and then the heron took flight, and the father said, "Look how graceful he is," and all of this. And then there was a rainbow, and And the father started talking about the rainbow in the sky and the different colors in the rainbow. And as we passed him, this was like just a few minutes of chat with his son. But I commented to my daughter, now that's how you develop language skills. That's how you develop thinking skills, you know? And he didn't spend any more time with his child than the first father we came upon, but he took the opportunity to develop, his child's ability to um, to appreciate what he was looking at, to build up his vocabulary, to build up his thinking skills, to build up his pronunciation, to build up his comprehension. And so it was such a much richer conversation. But he wasn't spending any more time with his son than the first father was. So today, that's I just thought I would just mention those few things about why children aren't ready and what it is that we can do to help children become ready for school. It doesn't have to be anything major. It can be, simple stuff that we do with them at home. It doesn't necessarily take lots of time. Well, it does take time, but it doesn't take lots and lots of time. And I'd like to invite anyone who has any comments, um, please write to us, or if you've any questions, or if there's anything that you think that I can help you with, please drop us a line and we'll be very happy to get back to you. Thank you very much.